All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. As you can see above me, we have a release date for Isleweaver, which is going to be on the 25th, and we have a small site and a few other pieces of information that we know are coming with Isleweaver to talk about today. But mostly, we now know the update date. That's going to be the 25th. Like I've been talking about before this, the big review video for all of the Warframes, the full roster review, is going to come out before then. Not sure exactly the date yet. That's what I've been working on. But we have a bunch of details to go over. The usual stuff that we have heard on the dev streams, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on. We know there's going to be an event. We know there's going to be some unique rewards. We know there's going to be a new game mode where it's Duviri, Rusalka's there, and it's going to be very Warframe focused. It's not going to be Drifter Duviri, as it were. So with that, we know that we're getting that stuff. You will need to have completed the 1999 storyline in order to do this, which makes perfect sense because it is a continuation with Rusalka being here. Very importantly, we do have the details on what Araxia's kit is now, and there's a few interesting bits to discuss here and just kind of what we can expect from her. I will note very heavily the abilities are subject to change during development. That includes right now. These descriptions have actually shifted around a little bit since this was first posted, but as far as I know, this is the most updated one, but we'll kind of see where we're going. I'm just going to go over these in order. We have her passive on the back end, and this is her first ability, which is Mercy's Kiss. This is leap onto an enemy and pierce them with Araxia's spider legs, dealing toxin damage. Enemies defeated by this attack have a chance to drop health or energy orbs. So for this ability, more so than anything else, I really hope that it is not an enemy is the only thing that this hits. Because the secondary effect of enemies that are defeated dropping health and energy orbs is very good. That means usually that you have a very accessible energy economy where you can very quickly get juiced back up whenever you run low. But one enemy at a time, if those chances aren't basically 100%, will make that a whole lot tougher. The toxin damage is going to come up in a few spots here where it's just we need to know how much toxin damage to really know how good this is going to be. But it's at least an interesting one for the resourcing potential. Then we have Webbed Embrace. This is Araxia throws a creeping web to ensnare her prey. Enemies caught within the widening radius are trapped inside a cocoon that increases their damage vulnerability. So this is damage go up and also place down a web, which is going to come up with her other abilities. This one, the damage vulnerability is probably going to have to be like pretty big in order for this to be hugely impactful. I think this might be more impactful for what it's going to interact with her other abilities, but damage vulnerability at a high enough level is usually going to be a good thing, especially when it seems like this is going to be a pretty large radius if it is going to like continue to get larger after you use it. Then we have her Widow's Brood. This is an ability that I was really hoping we would see from her because I do like Broodmother type spider characters. This is Araxia launches a barrage of stinging darts in front of her that apply toxin status effects. Poison enemies spawn scuttlers when killed. So this one, I imagine, because we did not get to see it, will work similar to Garuda's 4, affecting kind of all the enemies she'll see in like a cone is what it sounds like this will do. The Scuttlers are just a bunch of little summons, supposedly. Those, I'm hoping, are quite powerful, maybe along the lines of, you know, a Nyx mind control target as opposed to a Necros summon, I'm hoping. To actually have some like good summons roaming around. If they have the AI of the little spiders on Fortuna, those little guys are pretty aggressive. So given that they have high damage, they might actually be pretty effective. But it's really going to all depend on this one, on just how good the Scuttlers are and if that toxin damage is really, really high. Because if this is just going to be a bunch of darts that you shoot out and then the Scuttlers kind of don't do much whenever you generate them, that's really disappointing. If the toxin status isn't just killing everyone you're shooting these at, making the Scuttlers kind of just a secondary thing that's more thematic than anything else, would also be fine. And then for the fourth ability, the one that we know about and is kind of like the most interesting one, this is Unfurl Araxia's spider legs and go on the prowl. Araxia is immune to status effects, which is a fantastic start, and has increased maximum health, which I'm immediately skeptical of. We've talked about health tanking a lot recently with the Valkyrie work, which we're going to talk about a little bit more in a moment here. But hot health tanking is in a weird spot, but status immunity is always pretty good. Ranged weapons are imbued with toxin damage. Self-buffing your ranged weapons is good, being up on the legs and getting like, you know, a nice machine gun going with a good enough toxin buff, especially if it is guaranteed status. Pretty reasonable. And then killing enemies causes them to burst with toxin. Enemies that explode when they die, generally speaking, that has been a fantastic effect. so that's probably going to be pretty good. Just basically getting up on your legs and getting kind of like an overview and being able to gun guys down with additional health and status immunity seems pretty good. Interestingly, we have Silken Thread, which is tap dodge to leap to a targeted surface. So this doesn't say specifically that she's going to be able to do like the full wall crawling action that you would expect from a spider, but this does make me think that she will have it, because leap to a targeted surface really does feel like look at a wall and like just jump onto the wall. That's what it feels like that would mean to me personally. So hopefully we do see the full wall crawling from her. And then most importantly, I think Predator's Lurk. Wall latching grants Predator's Lurk, rendering Araxia invisible for 8 seconds. Now, provided her 4 can crawl on walls, and provided that that is considered to be a wall latch, which by all rights I would personally say it is, that would mean that Araxia can get in her 4, crawl up on walls, and just be invisible, meaning that the additional tankiness from increasing her maximum health probably won't matter too much in the end, and she'll mostly be just like, you know, kind of that, just stay above and just rain down hell with toxin procs, creating little spiders and scuttlers everywhere and putting enemies into her webs that can just give them a bunch of damage vulnerability. The passive really feels like it pushes her all the way in that direction for me personally, and that's a playstyle that sounds pretty fun. So interesting to see where she will end up. But yeah, if we end up in a situation where Araxia can basically just like crawl up into any tile set, go invisible just by touching on walls, and can move around pretty speedily in her spidery form, then I think she'll probably be in at least a pretty decent spot. The kit seems like it does kind of all make sense together, with probably the most questionable bit being the Mercy's Kiss. Whether this is going to be able to do enough damage to be like a relevant ability seems like it's maybe the tough sticking point there, but pretty much every Warframe needs a free subsume slot, and this might be that. So yeah, Araxia seems like she's going to be pretty interesting, at least as long as she can crawl up on walls and do the thing that we are pretty much all wanting, except for those of us that hate spiders, I think. Moving on, we of course have the Operation 8 Claw. This is going to be the Operation version of the new game mode. Notably for this, there is going to be a new Incarnate weapon and a 3-tiered Signa, so that's going to be similar to the 3-tiered Ephemera from the Jade event that will probably be earned over the course of this event, I'd imagine in the same way, though we don't know. So more cosmetics, a new Incarnate weapon. We also do know that this is going to be a way to get the Duviri currency, the clamps. We know that that is going to be in here, which is going to be very nice for people that just kind of got tired of doing the regular Duviri loops for that. Isleweaver, just in general, like this is going to be, you know, we're going to be fighting Araxia. She will be a boss there from all that we have heard. And of course, Rusalka will be involved. And then this is going to be, as I said before, primarily a Warframe and weapons thing, not operators and such. Also, some new enemies. There's going to be new murmurs in Duviri, which should be interesting. This hopefully means that we're going to see Entradi's Island, for those that have like looked into the lore of Duviri. We know that Entradi used to have an island there, so I'm hoping that we get kind of like a big lore dump from this, in terms of like kind of what was discovered there and what could be discovered there. Also, the Valkyrie rework. This Valkyrie rework is obviously coming with this. There have been a few other things that they've talked about since I got my hands on the Valkyrie rework early. There are a few other things they kind of added in on that. Ripline has more range than whenever I was messing with it. Paralysis has like reduced energy cost, and a few other things that have been added on to like what the Valkyrie rework was going towards. That being said, overall, I do think that, like, you know, it's not like a Valkyrie's fault problem, but just where armor and health tanking are currently, it is going to be worse for those of us that were taking her to like much longer content, but it's not going to be a problem for if you're playing like, you know, level 500 and lower content. You're still going to be basically just as invincible as you were, possibly with needing to swap the build around a bit. And of course, I'll be putting out a builds video for her to update that. With that being said, there's also some critical path changes, and I do want to talk about this specifically. We're getting some updates to the critical path that should be pretty nice for getting through the game quite quickly. In terms of catching up on story and everything, and this is going to impact the next free-to-play through that I'm going to be doing. So once we get these changes, expect a free-to-play through to be shortly following that. I'm actually maybe planning, if the scheduling works out for that, if I can get the full roster video out pretty soon, trying to get like a short free-to-play where I just kind of speed through it on stream, and don't, of course, like change my whole guide for it because this is about to happen. But going through that on stream might be like a fun little thing to do, so we can get the current one just kind of and see, give it a A plus A or A and B experience between the current one and the one we're about to have whenever this changes. Of course, there's some different like cosmetic packs and stuff. We're gonna get the Citrine Deluxe and all of that here, and we have a new round of Tenogen that'll be coming as well in this update. But we're kind of out of the important stuff on this page to talk about. Now, thing I do want to note is a thing that was talked about in the dev short recently, and that is this thing that Baro is going to start bringing. Now, this is an incredibly blurry and incomplete image, but Baro is going to start having this new item. This is called Void Surplus, and you're going to be able to purchase it once per visit from Baro. Now, luckily for you, you don't have to read this blurry shit, because I have a note here that says what all is going to be able to drop from this. So, this is 50k credits per visit. So, a pittance. An absolute dreg of credits. Functionally none credits for this reward. And I want to just say right off the bat, I think this is good, and it will make basically every Baro visit probably really good at minimum for anyone that is going to be visiting him at all. So this is half of one run of opening the safe in 1999 in order to get at a common rarity 2 Forma, an Orokin Catalyst or Reactor Blueprint, or a fully built Exilus Warframe or Weapon Adapter. Those are the common rewards. Immediately fantastic. I think that I could ask anyone if they would spend 50k credits on 2 Forma, and they would dump 10 million on me. So if you get 2 Forma, anytime you get 2 Forma, I think you're going to be pretty happy about it. Anything in this category, obviously for someone like me who's been playing for 10 fucking years, Catalysts and Reactors, I got 1 million. Still, though, that doesn't mean this is a bad reward. An Exilus Warframe and Adapter, Exilus Weapon and Warframe Adapters are still good for me. Like, I still have plenty of weapons that don't have it, and a few Warframes here and there as well. On the uncommon side, we have 5 different boosters that last for 24 hours. Affinity, Credits, Resource Drop, and Mod drop chances. There's just the 5 things that are in the uncommon. I do think that, like, honestly, on rate, I'm glad that these are less common than the top, because I do think generally these top 5 are going to be the better rewards. And you're kind of not going to want to be a little lucky, because I do think the boosters are on the kind of like lower end of the efficacy here. But moving on, we have at rare 15k Endo, 10 Universal Medallions, 20k Kuva, 1,000 Ducats, 10 Aya, and an Omniforma. And of these, the Omniforma, really nice. The 10 Aya, of course, incredible for people who need to get primes that have previously released whenever those things come around. 1,000 Ducats is very good. You could pretty easily convert that directly into Platinum by just trading with others. 20k Kuva is pretty underwhelming, and 10 Universal Medallions is also pretty underwhelming, but at least it's something for your syndicates. 15k Endo is pretty decent, especially if you are like on the newer end of players. Getting this as a reward would be quite nice. I do think that this in general leans more towards these as the more interesting and good rewards, with Aya being on the lower end of that. But anytime you get an Omniforma or 1,000 Ducats, I think you're going to be pretty happy with it. Now, on the legendary drops side, we have a very special reward, which is a unique Katir Signa. It is worth noting that this is not going to like permanently clog the drop table. Once you get it one time, you'll never get it again, which is good. But the trouble is going to be getting it once, I think. I'll be curious to see if like how rare this is overall, and if there is any kind of like pity attached to it, because I do think that long term this could crop up as being kind of a feel bad, where if they introduce this as a reward and you've been picking up your like, your Void Surplus from Baro for 2 years and you still don't have the unique Signa and it's the only thing you want from him, that could start to grow quite old. But a Legendary Core is, of course, always a fantastic reward. The only thing that I can say about Legendary Cores is the thing that I continue to say about Legendary Cores every time they crop up, and it's that I wish that they were a decoration that we could put down in our ship, because I think that the icon is really cool, and, like, just a model we could put down in our ship of them. For those of us that have a few laying around, I think would be very cool and give this a bit more value and make it feel even more legendary than it kind of does already. But I do think that the only real potential negative of any of this is a long-term feel bad from the special Signa putting some kind of a cap on this with, we know that obviously Baro is in every other week plus Tennokan visit. So putting some kind of cap on this where it's like, if you've, gotten the Void Surplus, say 25 times, basically a year of Baro showing up, then you will get the Signa. If you have not gotten it before then, maybe that's like a nice safety valve for people that really want this in particular and don't care so much about the rest of the nice rewards that are in here. But that's all that I could really think to criticize about the Void Surplus stuff that we're getting. I think that it is a very good thing to be adding to Baro. That will definitely make his visits a little bit nicer for really everyone involved. If you're not, if you're someone who's not caught up to 1999, I don't think you maybe even really know about Baro. And probably should focus on that instead of anything that he's bringing. But if you have access to 1999, the amount of credits needed here, like even on a per year basis, is like less than 1 million credits, which you can get in an, I was going to say an afternoon, but I really mean about an hour of just playing in 1999 on regular path. So I don't think it's going to be a big problem in terms of our investment. And it's a lot of good rewards in here that I'm glad people will have access to. But yeah, that is going to do it for kind of the wrap up. I'm very excited for Isleweaver. I think Araxia has a lot of potential with a few things that are like, on the concerning end if the numbers are really going to line up. But I think she looks cool. And I think that, as long as the wall crawling stuff is there, she'll at least be a fun and interesting Warframe to be playing. Get your copies of Arcane Arachne, I guess. And I'll see you on June 25th. Hey everybody, it's time to thank the patrons that are hanging around and supporting the channel. So, start with that. The $10 patrons are Atheon, Alex Farnham, Arbiter Daydream, Barkus, Benuven, Plotomatic, Brutus Salazar, Candelathra, Blob World, Dylan Dworsky, Athrain, James Harthorn, JC4 Science, Josh, Luzanth, Bicklekill, Michta, Nerve, Ruby, Sanyu, Sharp247, The Coupon of Death, Waifu Wars, Wodad01, and Zeraphir. Also, thanks, of course, to all of the other patrons for supporting the channel. It is much appreciated. It's a little sneak peek on what we're getting into. There's going to be a lot more of these kind of big re-reviews of weapon types and their new builds and stuff as things changed a lot at the end of last year. And of course, there's also planned new free-to-play before we get into any more big updates. So look forward to that.